people, and welcome to the latest edition of the About That podcast with me, your host, your favorite geek psychologist, your favorite pop culture enthusiast, your favorite queen of the nerds, Dr. Vanessa Hintz. And today, beautiful humans, for the first time in ever, I am introducing a segment that I am lovingly calling the Con Rewind. So you all have heard me talk before about my love for fan conventions and being in convention spaces. I talk on and on and on about the fun that I have in supernatural convention spaces. And so I thought it would be beneficial in my quest to spread joy and to share in fandom, to talk to you all a little bit about my convention experiences. And this first one is extra special to me, as I got to share this convention experience with my mom and my sister. And so today, dear friends, I'm going to talk to you all a little bit about that, why it's so meaningful to me, and also invite you to hear from those two very special people in my life about why it is meaningful to them. And so this Con Rewind is going to be focused on Fan Expo New Orleans 2024. And so just to give you all a little bit of a background, there are many different convention spaces, types of conventions, convention companies. According to their website, Fan Expo is the largest Comic-Con event producer in the world, with more than 1 million fans across North America. For Fan Expo, everyone is a fan of something, and it's the best place to celebrate all things pop culture. Fan Expo also intentionally calls out community building, saying community is everything to us. Fans bond over their shared love of fandom while making unforgettable memories at their shows. And so I can attest to this. I've been to a number of Fan Expo shows. This was my first time actually attending the show in New Orleans. New Orleans is just an amazing city to be in, and I was like, I ain't about to miss that. And the show, the Fan Expo show in New Orleans, which was previously Wizard World, has been happening since 2011. So it has been a market, it has been a city, it has been a setting that has allowed for this longevity. So that's pretty cool. And as I mentioned, this was particularly special to me to be able to share this with my family. I've always been a nerd. Like everyone in my family, I always knew that. And I think when I started to integrate that into my professional life, it hit a little bit differently. Like, growing up, I like nerdy things. That was a surprise to no one. And I think this immersion in fandom spaces, this sort of infusion of fandom into my professional life, I think absolutely it's not only become part of my identity, but again, something that I want to share with people that I care about. And so, again, my mom, my younger sister Sylvia, and I went together to New Orleans, not only just to have like a fun vacation, but also to, again, for my younger sister, this was her first show ever. And so it was really dope to be able to share that with them and to be able to spend that time together. And so I asked them, because it's what I do, I asked them if I could interview them about these experiences, right? And that is what I am going to bring forward to share with you all today. I will acknowledge first and foremost that there is much ambient noise in the background. We were at a restaurant recording this, and it was fun. Shout out to Juan's Flying Burrito on Magazine Street in New Orleans. That's where we were. Taking in some food and beverages and also having this conversation. And so I want to invite everyone to allow for grace, again, given the ambient noise in the background. But nonetheless, I think it was, this conversation is something that I like to talk to a lot of fans about. If you all have listened to episode 2, when I talked to fans at the Supernatural Convention in Las Vegas, I just love hearing people talk about things that they love. I very much enjoy engaging with people when they're doing something they love, when they're talking about something that they love, whether that be a person, a plant, a pet, a thing, a show, a movie, a book, whatever. it is infectious almost. And that is something that I value about fandom spaces, and that is something that I very much valued about this conversation. So the first thing I asked about was like, what are your fandoms? What are some things that you really love? What are some things that you geek out about? Tell me about those things. And as I mentioned, I usually like want to know that about folks, right? Like I want to know what it is that they really like, because if ever there's a lull in small talk, which I'm not very good at small talk, that's my go-to, right? Like, oh, what are you watching right now? What are you listening to? What are you reading? Whatever. And so I asked about these fandoms, and I wanted to know a little bit more about what it was that my mom and my sister found valuable about these things that they love. And first up, as deference requires, is my mom.
Fandoms I'm a part of would, of course, be Supernatural. And there's so many of them. There's Supernatural, there's The Expanse, there's The Dark Tower, which is my biggest heart. And in modern day stuff, there's Formula One racing. I've become a huge super fan of that. So
I then asked my mom what she likes so much about each of these things, specifically The Dark Tower by Stephen King and Formula One racing, because I know those are her faves.
That everyday people can do great things.
And Formula One racing?
I like the fact that it's so multi-ethnic. There's so many people from all over the world. This is the first year I watched the whole season, and it was awesome. It was really great.
Side note, my mom lights up every time she talks about The Dark Tower, so I ask her many questions about it any chance I get.
I started The Dark Tower when he first wrote The Gunslinger, and anybody that read it in the beginning realizes I think it was 20 years before he finished the entire series. So you read The Gunslinger, then nothing happened. Then he eked out another one, which I didn't read. And then I remember I was at a time when I was at the library and just scrolling through the stacks, and all of a sudden I saw these 3 new Dark Tower books, and I just lost my mind. They were amazing. I reread it about every 18 months. Either reread it or listen to it again. And if I don't do it that often, I start missing the characters. I think that I think all things that deal with alternate realities, and again with ordinary people stepping into another world doing extraordinary things, I always find those stories appealing, because I feel like I see this a lot on social media, is that if there was an open door, would you step through it? And I'm always like, oh hell yeah, see you later. I would go. Yes, the life that I have lived has been good, but there's always the possibility of being extraordinary. I feel sad for people that don't have that escape in their life, have that joy in their life. I don't want to say escape, because it's just joy. That don't have that opportunity to feel that good about something.
This conversation about joy versus escapism is a curious one that I promise we will return to in a few moments, good people, after you hear from my younger sister Sylvia about all the things that she loves.
I think that the most current fandom is going to be Fourth Wing by Rebecca Yarros, which kind of moves on into that sort of fantasy realm. I'm very much into the Sarah J. Maas. It's so great. So I started with ACOTAR, which is A Court of Thorns and Roses, and then I moved into Crescent City, and then moved into Throne of Glass, which is kind of a backwards way of doing it in the way that she wrote them. But that whole reality, that whole thing that she created is just absolutely fantastic. And I also love like just the earlier stuff, like growing up, like The Simpsons and like Family Guy and all of those cartoons that were just on late that you wasn't supposed to be watching, but you just kind of did anyway because you had older sisters that would let you.
Spoiler alert, she's talking about me. I'm that older sister. Nonetheless, back to our regularly scheduled programming.
But I think that those, in my head currently, are the ones that are sticking out to me.
I also wanted to know how she came to know about and love these things.
I think for Fourth Wing and ACOTAR, it's definitely going to be, there's this little bookshop that I go to that's in my neighborhood, and they always just had them in the front window. And I didn't know whether or not I wanted to read that, because I'm like, I'm cooler than that. I'm going to read something that's more obscure, like something that not everybody loves. But I was like, you know what? I'm about to give that a chance. And that's really how I discovered it. And then there was like Book Talk and like Bookstagram. And I was like, if it's got this much hype, like it has to be, there's got to be something of substance there. And that's really how like I came into it. But I've always loved fantasy books. I mean, I started with Laurel K. Hamilton, which is just amazing. And then I moved into like raunchier stuff, which was like 50 Shades. And like Sylvia Day has a few books, but that's just always been something that's just always interested in me. But I mean, I like the word escape because that's exactly what it is. I like being able to step into a reality that's not my own and just be entranced for hours and just be like vividly hallucinating while you're sitting there with no sound on. Like that's absolutely wild to me. And I love that. I love books that can make me do that. So yeah. I talk to people about it. I mean, the second somebody asks me, like, what are you reading? I'm like, well, I flip my hair back and I look at them to make sure they're paying attention to me. And then I just nerd out completely on it. And then if I find somebody else, I just sit there and I talk and I talk and I talk. And then we have this great conversation. And then I'm like, I'm looking at people's reaction videos on YouTube. And I'm buying things on like Etsy. And I'm just reminding myself why I love something so much. So when I look around and I see like this picture I bought or this necklace that I bought or these special editions that I have on my bookshelf, it just re-invites me into that happy feeling that I get when I read these books. And I feel like to even further that, I like to read other things that like live within the same genre, because then I get to compare these things, and then I get to reminisce on how these things have affected me in like all these different ways, but how they're so cool when you bring them all together. And I just think that fantasy, like that whole realm of like fairies, is the best. Dragons are great. And I think that everybody should discover a love for dragons because there's something so great about that. I love how they're just the embodiment of magic in itself. And I love that. I love that they're supposed to be like this. They are. I mean, they're this mythical creature with all of this power, and they're so majestic. And the idea that they would even like deign to talk to us, it just thinking that you could be that person that a dragon would actually talk to you. It's so fantastical, and I love that. So fall in love with dragons because those are great. But also, like, book boyfriends are just better than like most boyfriends in real life. Hell, girlfriends in real life too. And I think that I like having this person that is just so fantastical, but also you get to obsess over and like you get to just sort of dream about. And I think that brings so much joy to me. It's like thinking about all of these characters and how I could be like these characters. So I'm just like, just discover fantasy. That's
amazing. And I will say too, after this conversation, my sister recommended I read Fourth Wing by Rebecca Yarros, and I am now unabashedly, unequivocally obsessed. That think piece is coming soon. And I'll just preface that by saying obsessing over literary boyfriends is trill, right? Going all the way back to some of the first books I read. So more on that to come, right? But what I do want to take a sort of brief interlude to talk about is this idea of escapism and escapism versus joy, right? And so I thought it was interesting, this sort of comparison between how my mom described her feelings about, the things that she loves and really engaging in it and really getting lost in it versus my sister. And so I thought that, and again, that's not to say one is right, wrong, or otherwise, noteworthy though. And so I want to invite a conversation now about escapism, right? So according to the American Psychological Association Dictionary of Psychology, escapism is, quote, the tendency to escape from the real world to the delight or security of a fantasy world. Escapism may reflect a periodic, normal, and common impulse, as might be seen in harmless daydreams, or it may be evidence of or accompany symptoms of some sort of psychological disorder or situation. And I added that last part. End quote. So I think it's important to think about escapism like we think about many things on a spectrum, right? So escapism in itself is not bad. It's not wrong. It exists on a spectrum, and the way that you sort of discern or value if it is beneficial to you or not is through your own sort of mechanisms of comparison, right? So I'm going to keep myself in check so I don't go on a whole rant. But the reason that I would argue that the reason that we would even, shake a fist at escaping to a fantasy world is namely capitalism. We live in a capitalistic society that tells us our time and our efforts need to be productive. And if we are, reading a book for 12 hours, what productivity is that, right? And I'm here to tell you that investing in yourself is productive, right? And so I think that idea that, again, this escapism is wrong, I think is absolutely rooted in these ideas of how we value time. Like time has to be productive, or quote, facing reality. What does that mean? What does that mean? Because I can get lost in Supernatural, I can get lost in Fourth Wing, I can get lost in whatever, and understand that I don't live there, right? And that does not negate or take away from what it provides to me. You know what I'm saying? And so I think that this idea of escapism, I would absolutely invite you all listening to this, right? Thinking about the things that you love, thinking about the things that you consume. I would argue when my husband sits in front of the TV on Sundays and watches football for hours upon hours upon hours, that's his form of escapism. Would we shake a fist at that? You know what I'm saying? I think that it is definitely, again, escapism and how you value these sort of engagements or immersions in these other worlds, whether they be fantasy worlds, whether they be television shows or movies or sporting events. How you value that is up to you, right? It is absolutely up to you. I also want to bring in an understanding, sort of like a conceptual understanding of what we mean by joy. I talk all the time on my social media to my students, to anybody who will listen, right, about how my mission in life, my intentionality is to unapologetically experience joy. And again, according to the APA's Dictionary of Psychology, joy is, quote, a feeling of extreme gladness, delight, or exultation of the spirit arising from a sense of well-being or satisfaction. Joy can take one of two forms: passive joy, which involves tranquility and a feeling of contentment with things as they are, or active joy, which involves a desire to share your feelings with others, and this is associated with more engagement in your environment than passive joy. And so I can feel content, which I would argue is like passive joy, like, oh, this is cool, I feel good. Active joy is, and I'm out here. You know what I'm saying? I feel good and I'm out here because I want to spread this to any and all people. And I would argue that active joy, that shared experience, that shared engagement of joy and happiness is what I value and what so many people value about fandom spaces. I think it's amazing. I think it's part of our existence as, relational beings in this world is engaging with one another. And I think these opportunities to engage in a way that is joyful, and again, that's not to negate ways that we engage that are not joyful, right? Like there's no good and bad emotions. Emotions just are what they are, right? So if I'm engaging with someone in an angry way, that's not necessarily a bad thing, right? I think that, again, this active joy, this intentional joy, intentional engagement with other people centered around something that is amazing, something we love, whatever that is phenomenal. And again, for my family, this was our first time experiencing a convention together. And so I absolutely wanted to know from them what value they found in this space.
Okay, so this was my first convention ever. So a lot of this that I'm feeling is like just my initial reaction. I think that just off the jump, the convention made me feel like how I feel during Pride celebrations, where it's a weekend or a week. It's this specific time of year every year where you just get to let your freak flag fly, and you get to be gay in any kind of way, however that means to you, and everybody around you is there to support you. It's like, I don't know you, and I don't know you. However, I feel so safe, and I feel like Pride is that time where you get to feel that safety, but you also just get to feel so much joy. Because it's like, yeah, like I'm gay 365, but here I am being so celebrated for being gay. And that is so fantastic. And I feel like that's the feeling that I felt at the convention. It's like nobody around here is judging me. Nobody around here is asking me any questions or looking at me any kind of way or has anything to say about what I'm doing or how excited I am or when I'm commenting on somebody's outfit. Like everything is just so joyful because everyone is there to not just feel good about themselves, but to also feel good about where they are and who they're with. And I felt like everybody was really just trying to hype the other person up, and you just don't get that every day. So having that for a few days, it's exactly what you need. It's like the relief that you need from your everyday life to remind you that life is still worth very much living. I loved that. Going back to like Pride, I think that this convention also had such an LGBTQIA like presence. Like there was so many like booths that you would walk by where they had Pride flags just to let people know like you're just safe here. And I think that sometimes we don't go to places as people of color and as queer people of color, we don't go to places because we don't feel safe. And conventions, it's not that I didn't feel like they weren't for me, but I didn't know that I had anything to relate to. And even if I was just going there without knowing what I could relate to, I could relate to the fact that there were pride flags everywhere. And I think that's great.
Whoo, it must run in the family. Come on with the word. And we absolutely will return to this conversation about safety for people who are more often than not othered in traditional spaces. We will talk more specifically in a few moments about safety in con spaces, safety that allows for joy. Before we get there though, I ain't trying to get in trouble, so let me let y'all hear what my mama had to say.
As a person that has never felt comfortable in public spaces because for whatever reason, I've never felt like I fit in. And I remember an old boss of mine in Wyoming telling me that I'd be hard pressed to find people like me. I find that, as Sylvia mentioned, going into the cons is such a joyous feeling. No one ever looks at me wrong or different or ooh, look at her, or any of that. It's just such a joyous thing. The fact that everyone is so polite, it's also, I just love that part too. You know, you don't have people elbowing you out of the way or you know, any of that. It's, oh, excuse me, you know, and all of that. It's a wonderful thing. And I appreciate having that space and that opportunity. This is my second con. I've been to 3, but the first one doesn't really count because we were in and out so fast. This is my second one, and there'll be many more because I need this in my life. I need a space in which I can relax and enjoy it and find people that like stuff that I like. I mean, I found people that understood all roads lead to the tower. The guy rolled right off his tongue. I was like, oh yeah. It's just great at my age to find that kind of space.
And let me tell y'all something else my mama did, quote, at her age. This convention was actually home to her first ever cosplay, our first ever family cosplay. don't let me steal this shine and steal the joy. You listen to it straight from her.
Every time I caught my face in the mirror, I couldn't stop smiling. My cosplay was Bobby from Supernatural, which was very fitting because I was there with my two daughters, and calling them idiots brought me much joy. So I couldn't stop smiling. I mean, and not only smiling, just giggling. And I'm not a giggling kind of girl. So, so it was. I was really excited to have done it, and I can't wait till I have the next one. I'm already thinking about stuff I can do the next time.
So I was Dean Winchester, and that was fantastic. I loved how easy it was to throw together, but also how fun it made me feel because everybody knew who I was. Also because I had Dean's shirt on, so everybody was just like, "Oh, I wonder if she's Dean Winchester." I am big, and I love. For me, it's dress up. I just love dress up. It's something I like to do all the time anyway. But being able to put on this outfit and go into this space and have people be like, "Oh yeah, that's so cool, Dean," right? And you're just like, "Yeah," that was exciting. I like being, I like the acknowledgement of being like, "Hey, you put in some effort today, and I want to say thank you for that." And that made me happy for the second it took me to pass you. And I just think that that's so great.
Y'all, listening to all of that back is, I feel it in my chest. I feel it in my shoulders right now. I feel this lump in my throat, in a good way, all in an amazing way, right? Listening to all of this back and remembering what that experience was like and to be able to share it with people that you care about is absolutely amazing. And I think that, the conversation around safety, which, just to give us all a shared understanding, when we talk about this type of safety, yes, we're talking about physical safety. Also, safety is inclusion. Safety is belonging. Safety is community. Safety is feeling celebrated and valued and affirmed for who you are authentically, not who the world wants you to be. And I think that, as my mom said, as Sylvia said, there are so many people that feel like they can only be that in certain spaces, which is absolutely indicative of the world we live in, where you can be celebrated and valued for who you are authentically. That is an amazing feeling. It is a gift. It is something that absolutely should, I don't like the word should, and I'm going to say it is absolutely something that should not be so difficult for people to find spaces where they feel affirmed, where they feel valued, where they feel celebrated. And again, I think fan conventions allow for that. I would be remiss if I didn't say, I want to also acknowledge that it's not all sunshine and rainbows. For the longest, I avoided fandom spaces, and some of that was my own issue, right? Some of that was my own self-consciousness, my own anxiety, my own self-loathing, whatever. Some of that is also that, everybody ain't welcoming. Everybody isn't joyful, particularly for me as a Black woman in these spaces, right? It ain't always sunshine and rainbows. You will come to a convention and you find, you'll have, if I'm doing a panel, there'll be that gotcha person that asks a question because they want to, flex whatever intellectual whatever they think that they got on me, or their comic knowledge, or their scary movie knowledge, or whatever. There are absolutely those people in the spaces too. There are absolutely people that might be creepy, around your cosplay or around whatever. I want to acknowledge that, we also still want to be vigilant, right, in these con spaces. And what I'm also going to invite is, even if there are those gotcha people, or, those, I'm a member of the Supernatural fandom, there are definitely some elitist fans in that fan space and in many fan spaces, right? Fans that want to, sow the us and them divisions as opposed to being collaborative and collective and, in community around this thing that we love. There are those people everywhere, right? And what I invite myself to do, and what I'm going to invite all of you to do, is yes and those people, right? You're here, yes and I'm here too. And you're not about to stop this shine. You know what I'm saying? And I think that that's also something that is valuable about finding your people in fandom and convention spaces. Y'all have heard my man's the hardest working man in comics, Victor Dandridge, on this show with me more than once. That's my guy. If I'm at a show and he's there, I know I'm safe. I know I have a person. And now that I have this to share with my family as well, like, chef's kiss. Absolutely amazing. And so I hope that in listening to this conversation, in hearing these accounts that were for once in a blue moon, not mine, right? I hope that this, if you are someone who is experiencing nervousness or trepidation about, going into a fandom space, whether that be an actual convention space, an online space, whatever, my hope is that this invites you to lean into that. Lean into those spaces. I didn't know what leaning into the supernatural fandom would bring me, and it has brought me not only just some fabulous pictures, but some fine men's. I'm talking about you, Jared and Jensen. Not only that, I also touched Captain America one time, so that was super dope. You know what I'm saying? Like, so there's that part of fandom spaces that is absolutely amazing. There's also nothing like geeking out and talking about something that you love so much with other people that are not side-eyeing you, that are not like, but what does that have to do with anything? It has to do with everything, because it has to do with this joy that I'm experiencing right now. So if you are someone and you need a kind word, hit me up. If you need a kind word about stepping into a fandom space, hit me up. If you need a kind word about stepping into a space where you feel othered, hit me up. And I will lift you up. I will lift you up. I will work my hardest to empower you, as I know that you all would do the same. So with that, my dear, beautiful humans, thank you for sharing this time, for sharing this space, for spending this part of your day, this part of your life with me and with my family. I wish you and your families safety, health, and joy. Until next time, good people.